Islam and greetings. Princeanaelbey, Divine Prince and Supreme Grand Sheikh of the Moorish Science Temple of America through Temple Alhambra. Before I get into today's session, I want to remind you this photograph can be yours. The PayPal information will be in the description box. And this is a picture of what I have entitled The Greatest Crime Never Investigated. And it tells the story of how the Church of Rome, its allies, England, France, and Spain, and the United States of America conquered our land. And this is symbolic of this particular statuary in the George Washington Masonic Memorial Museum. It is more relevant to you than that picture of Cesare Borgia, who your granny has on the wall, portrayed as Jesus the Christ. This is more relevant to you than that portrait of Cesare Borgia. He was son of Pope Alexander VI, whose name was Rodrigo Borgia. And he appointed his son, Cesare, as the general of the papal army, who also helped to conquer us. And the PayPal description is in the PayPal information is in the description box. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, etc. You know the drill. One of my subscribers, he requested that I do a session on marriage. And I was contemplating with myself on how best to bring it to the brother. And because there is no other way for me to deliver information other than the truth of it all, that I cannot get around. So, class, if you are ready, here is the science, chicanery, and machinations that are relevant to the state of marriage. In the beginning, especially where Europeans are concerned, because they are the authors of this particular ritual. Its roots, its seeds were born in Rome. And marriage is a binding contract between three entities: you, your intended, and the state. That is what marriage is. It is a legal contract. It is a legal contract because by now you have a certification of birth. You have it, but Rome owns it. Therefore, that puts you in the status of a minor, and a minor is not capable of handling his own affairs. You are a minor. You are a minority. And marriage, being the contract that it is, marriage is also known by another name. And it is referred to as holy matrimony. Now, the thing that makes it holy is that it is sanctioned by the church. the Church of Rome. It's sanctioned by the church. That is what makes it holy. And matrimony, well, if you know anything of the 9 elemental degrees of Moorish science, then the 4th degree is where this is embedded. Matrimony. Matrimony means mama's money. Matriarch, mama. Matrimony, M-O-N-Y. Well, of course, you know what that spells. Matrimony. Therefore, because you are in holy matrimony, and it doesn't matter what you do, the church must be paid. It will be paid either through a tax or a direct charge, but the church will get paid. And this is why it costs so much for you to buy your wife. When the marriage is over, well, guess what? According to the church, she is entitled to matrimony. It does go by another name. The name is alimony, but it's matrimony, baby. Don't fool yourself. That's mama's money. And that is why Rome has designated you as the payer, and she is the payee. Now, what led up to marriage was the courtship ritual, of course, and the day the man proposes. Now, what I know is your idea of a proposal is getting down on one knee asking her to marry you. That to you is a proposal. Well, that is not exactly, that ain't at all how proposals were done. The proposal came in the form of a business arrangement because the intended suitor, he had to buy his wife from her father. And there was this little table with a single drawer in it. And the would-be bridegroom, he would come to the house and he would have a number written down on a piece of paper, and he would put it in that drawer, in that singular little table. The father would retrieve the paper, and he would read the potential groom's proposal of payment. His proposal, what he proposes to pay for his daughter. That is a proposal. It's a business arrangement. It's a business arrangement. So, that is what a proposal is. I was going to say an actual proposal, but that is where the word, which is misused today, that's where it actually came from. He proposed this much money in a business arrangement. Now, before the Moors brought light to a darkened Europe, the Europeans of the age, they only put water on themselves twice a year. They only saw water twice a year. Now, the women of that age, as well as the men, they didn't bathe. They simply didn't bathe. Among the first things they did when they defeated us in Spain, the first thing they did was tore down all the bathhouses because we brought bathing to Europe. And considering they only use water twice a year, this is where this longing to be a June bride came from. This is where the wanting to be a June bride came from. Because 6 months into the year, and they knew that they weren't going to have any water touch them until the end of that year. The custom of wearing the white dress was created by the Europeans in the Dark Ages. Because they did not bathe, she knew she was going to be all stinky and funky and hairy and whatnot. And so did he. And so the wearing of the white dress, it has come to be known, and erroneously, I might add, the mark of a virgin. Only virgins should wear white dresses at their wedding. Nonsense. The idea of the white dress came from the fact that they stunk, they smelled, but on the outside they could at least appear pure. That is where the concept of wearing the white dress in June for June brides came from. Can you imagine that wedding night? Oh my God. Must have had that hut lit up, huh? The both of them. But the white dress, it made her appear to be clean and pure. That is where the concept of the white dress came from. Now, adding to this, what the word has come to mean over time to many people. I will relate this session on marriage to the Asiatic Moors and the Amalgamated Moors of America and the United States. When you speak of marriage, you ought to know exactly what it is you are speaking of. What it has come to mean to some is it is an opportunity to be with the one you love. To some, it is that way. I would suggest to anyone thinking along those lines to seriously consider and give very serious thought to what you are about to do. I'm going to give you some tools to get you started on that path to actually thinking about what you are about to do. Because many people have absolutely no concept of what being obligated, which is what we call it. We don't get married. We become obligated to one another through a custom which has been in our family for generations. We become obligated. We don't get married. And so as you begin to think, these are the things that I would like for you to consider when you consider being obligated to someone else. The first thing that you should consider is this something that you can do in good faith? That is the first question. You ask that because you have an understanding that your life is now going to be intertwined with someone else's life. Therefore, you cannot be and do who you were and have done before you invited that individual into your life. And here's why. Most people do not understand that being in a relationship automatically means change. And if you want to make a success of anything, you must put all that you are into it. What most people tend to do is bring who they are into something brand new. And as I've told you before, when they do that, they bring the detonator with them. And this they do not realize until they actually hit the button on the detonator. And at that point, they still don't know what happened. That is how quick the explosion is. Once you realize that your life is going to be inextricably entwined with someone else's, you can no longer afford to just think about you. You can no longer afford to do that. And another thing that you must consider, is she the kind or type of woman a man can build with? Meaning, does she trust you enough to follow your directions? Because you see, a woman who cannot follow her man's directions is worthless to him. And they can never build anything because their ideologies are so diametrically opposed to one another. Nothing could possibly be built from nothing. And so these are just two things that you should consider. And these, of course, are the two things that follow the first thing. And the first thing is your intended mate. The question you ask there is, does he or she matter? Because if they do, here is what should happen. Should they actually matter? When you know that you are in a relationship with someone who is just as bent as you are on maintaining it and growing it, here is where you make the differentiation in that other dirty four-letter word, which you call love. Love has now just become another dirty four-letter word because you don't know what it is. And when you consider the number one, which is that person, that other person, your intended, it doesn't matter what the situation or the circumstances. When that other individual becomes important to you, your first question is always, especially when you are in the presence of temptation, your very first question should be, would he approve of this? Would she approve of this? And when you already know the answer, then you already know what should not be on your list of things to do. You should know because you already know the answer. These are the things that come with actually living somebody, not loving them. You live that individual, which means when you live somebody, you actually put them in your relationship on the front burner each and every time. You ask yourself that question, and you already know the answer. Then you simply summon up the strength to get on, because you have to know you're going to be tested all the time. And nobody tests you to see how many you've gotten right or how many you got wrong. That is never why you are tested. You are, however, always tested to see how you test. That is the purpose of testing, to see how you test. To give a damn about how many you got right or wrong. That's not why you are tested. And you're going to have tests in your long-term relationship or in your marriage. You're always going to be tested, but you must know that they are tests. And because your intended is the first thought in your mind, you ask yourself that one question, there is no more temptation. That second degree is right there with you. It's right there with you. That's not loving somebody. That's actually living someone else. And when that is reciprocated from the other end, my goodness. My goodness. But here is what people don't understand about what's commonly known as a modern marriage. Along with a modern marriage comes modern ideas. Modern ideas stem from experiences, environment, lessons learned, who taught you these, who taught these lessons, and other minute factors that contribute to what people become today. And in a modern marriage, a modern standard church-sanctioned marriage, it is fraught with pitfalls and dangers for the man of means and substance. Because it is under Roman law, the marriage is subject to Roman terms. So mama's money is also in store, possibly. And the reason it is possible is because of modern ideas of modern marriage. People today, especially the current generation and the last four succeeding generations preceding generations of them, they have been taught and trained to dismiss the idea of caring for another person or another somebody. And their goals, if that's what you want to call them, they are so short-sighted. They do not look into the tomorrows that are not here today. They are not long-term thinkers. Therefore, the relationships that they enter into, they already know by nature, this is not going to last. And because of this, you see, that stems from what has historically been known as an act of appreciation, love, and affection for one another. In these modern days, having sex now has simply just become another recreational sport with consequences. Those consequences are the accidents. Because every bastard child born was an accident. Was an accident. Every goddamn one of them. They were accidents. And their birthers, they don't have the nerve or the guts to tell their children to their faces, you were an accident. I didn't want you. I just got up, knocked up with you. They will never tell their children this. And the shame of it is, it simply adds to the children's ignorance of who they are. These things should be taken into consideration. And the single most important thing that I would like to get over to you is the importance of thinking. It's the importance of thinking. Thought should go into everything and decision that you make. Your thoughts cannot run simply in the 90 degrees of the direction in which you are looking, because you are looking through a rather myopic view, and there is 360 degrees of the world around you, as there are 360 degrees of knowledge. And in order to achieve these 360 degrees of knowledge, one must continue to exercise thought. It's a very important part of this process, because what you think can be brought to manifest. When you know the science behind it, you don't have to wish for anything. You don't have to wish for anything. You simply make it be. And if you're looking at a marriage with someone else, consider the things that I have imparted to you on that subject, because it is a very important step, especially for young people. This is not something that young people should consider. It just isn't. Because young people do not have the tools to successfully navigate the path of obligation. They simply don't. They do not possess it. And when you do not possess something, it is impossible to employ, because you cannot employ what you do not know. That is a truism. And young people do not possess the tools for a healthy, successful, long-term relationship, because that is not in their nature. And those who preceded them created them. And so marriage, serious obligation, etc., it just isn't something that young people should even think about today, because they do not have the maturity of mind. They simply cannot focus long enough to give serious, contentious thought to anything. They do not possess the tools. They simply do not possess the tools. I'm going to come back with a part 2 of this video, because this is important. And besides, one of my subscribers, he requested it. I will see you in just a bit. And remember, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, etc. Thumbs up, you know how that goes. Okay. I bid you peace.